Now, some people say that this podcast has prejudices in favour of frying, perhaps a little bit hard on tempeh. But there's another part of your dinner plate that's just not getting enough attention. Yeah, I remember reading something somewhere about how vegetables are like important and how you should eat them and stuff. It's not really part of my everyday. I mean, vegetable oil is made of vegetables, so that's how I get my 5 a day. But let's meet some chefs who are going to put them front and centre. Andrew Darg is a returning guest from the Modern Cuisine episode, which you should totally check out if you haven't already. Along with his partner, Donna Conroy, he opened Vanilla Black in York in 2004. It was known for breaking away from the vegetarian norms and uses modern techniques to push the boundaries of vegetarian and vegan cuisine. It was Michelin recommended and held 2 AA rosettes. And he's got a new venture. It's a touring cookery school and online training. Romy Gill, MBE. Oh, our first MBE of the series. MBE, that's proper, isn't it? Is a British Indian chef, food writer, author and broadcaster. She's now one of the chefs on the new series of Ready Steady Cook on BBC One. That's got to be on your bucket list. I mean, that's a total bucket list thing, isn't it? That's amazing. Yeah. She also appears on BBC's The One Show, BBC's Celebrity MasterChef, James Martin's Saturday Morning, Sunday. She's done all of them. That's what we're saying. She's the author of Zaika, Vegan Recipes from India, and is writing her next book, The Himalayan Trail, Kashmir to Leh, out in spring of next year. And Rishim Sachdeva worked firstly under Marco Pierre White at the Oak Room. Should I do my impression? I don't think I should. Where he learned Marco Pierre White. There you go, that's all I got. Where he learned classic French cooking before moving on to work at Heston's iconic The Fat Duck. It's got to have a rebrand, hasn't it, for the new generation? You can't fat shame a duck. Rishim pledged to veganuary in 2019, which he admits changed the way he viewed vegan food, and it saw him continue a plant-based diet long past the initial month. And in early 2020, he was offered a pop-up residency at the iconic Sun and 13 Cantons pub in Soho. I have crawled out of that pub many times. And this month, he's launching his first solo venture, Tendril, which I've looked up online, and that brie on toast thing looks pretty wild, Rishim.
Thank you. Hence, we're mostly vegan. That's the only cheese thing we have on the menu.
I thought it was vegan brie. Damn it. Okay, I'm not coming. No, I'm kidding. I'll still come. Welcome to all of you. Thanks so much for being here. Now, this is something that I've successfully managed to swerve in nearly 40 episodes of this podcast. Vegetables. I mean, we have talked occasionally about making them front and centre, the kind of hero of the plate. But very often, I myself, look, tonight, not going to lie, we had vegan sausages. We had meat and 2 veg. It's just that it was vegan meat. So it's great to be here and celebrating vegetables, their wonderful diversity, and putting them front and centre. So look, if it's okay with you, I'm going to jump straight in. We've had lots of questions. Thanks very much for writing in. If you've got a question, it's podcast@veganlifemag.com. We'll always field your question to the best person to answer it, apart from that time when we asked a Frenchman to do Yorkshire pudding. It's an upcoming episode. Anyway, Paul has emailed to say, what's the correct way to cook bok choy? Do I use the crunchy stem bit, or do I just cook the whole leaf in the pan? Well, that's a great question. Rishim, what do you do with a bok choy?
Oh, bok choy. Yeah, it's a great vegetable to work with. I think it's a tricky one because the stem's obviously a lot thicker than the leaf, and the leaf will cook quicker. So there are few techniques / tricks I think you could work with. So the first thing first, you definitely need more surface area. So I would definitely slice the bok choy lengthwise in half, so that it goes in the pan, you get more char, and you kind of have more flavor gone into it. Now the second, it sounds a bit tricky, but it's actually quite straightforward. You need to identify the hottest part of the pan, which usually is in the middle, right? So you want to add a touch of oil, put the bok choy stem side in the center, and try and put the leaf towards the edge of the pan.
Gotcha.
So it's sort of an even cooking, but a little wilted leaves are always nice. And what would you want to do is apply a bit of pressure on the stem so that it cooks quicker, pretty much at the same time as the leaves. And just, work with that. I wouldn't pretty much chop them off and cook them separately.
No.
You could do that, but the wilted leaf, the char flavor, it works better.
Sure. Be a bit strategic about it. I want to figure out where the hottest part of my pan is. Andrew.
It's a good one because one of the problems with it is basically it's not far off lettuce.
Right.
So you're basically, you're cooking lettuce
Chlorophyll
in a way.
and water. Yeah.
I like the idea of charring it, definitely, because I always think charring gives a good flavour. But one of the things, in the past we used to do this with chard, and we turned it onto bok choy as well, is to take off the leaf at the top. As we've just heard, take the stem, flash fry it really hot to char it, but keep the leaf separate. And then when you actually serve the stem, chiffonade, which just means chop it really thinly, but it sounds good.
Yeah, it does.
The leaf part, and serve that sprinkled on top. So what you end up with at the end is some cooked and some raw.
Oh.
So you're getting the contrast in the same vegetable. It's nice braised as well. If you take off the leaf and just take the stem and put it into a casserole dish, and add some sesame oil on there, and maybe with a bit of ginger and some spring onions. Put the lid on and braise it for 30 minutes or so, and bring that out. Season it with a bit of salt and pepper, and then add the chiffonade, finely chopped leaf on top of it for a bit of freshness. It's quite versatile.
Nice. And Romy, what about you?
I totally agree with both on the show, but I
have you ever had bok choy on Ready Steady Cook?
Yes, many times.
Have
many
you?
of the chefs has.
Nice.
Yeah, I think many times. I do char grill it, but my daughters love it under the grill, but literally 2 minutes on a very high heat. It's similar to charring, really, but I marinate it first. I'll marinate with soy sauce, a little bit of garlic or ginger, a little bit of honey. It depends on whatever ingredients I have in my stored cupboard, and I'll marinate it and then cook it. It's really delicious.
That's the best way. Whatever's in the cupboard goes in.
That is always the best way to cook anything, isn't it? Good point. Before we go on to the next question, I realised I forgot to ask you the first question, which is, what's the best vegan food you've eaten recently? Andrew, let's start with you.
Oh, I'm going to be really bad here, because I know everyone's going to say, I went to this really posh restaurant. But we actually last week went down to Weymouth on the south coast, and we had something, and I've only seen this on the south coast, called a mushy pea fritter.
Oh, yeah.
Which literally is mushy peas dipped in batter and deep fried, which is very naughty. But I want to try something with that, because I get the feeling that what happened is someone cooked mushy peas one day, had too many left, and the next day, when you get mushy peas and they've kind of set,
congealed. Yes.
Yeah, and I thought, I bet if someone's come up with that idea and thought, how do we get rid of this? Let's deep fry it. So it made me think, what happens, if you've made a really thick dal, and it's in the fridge, and then the next day it's set, what would happen if you kind of shaped that and put a really thick, crispy batter on it and deep fried it? That would be nice.
You would have me knocking at your door. That's what would happen.
Yeah.
Well, we've always maintained that, frying makes everything good. Andrew, do you do a chip butty? What's there something you've been posting on Instagram lately about?
Oh, we're doing it's a session next week on Zoom, and we're doing a take on chip butty. I've been testing it this afternoon, actually. It's not a chip butty as you can expect.
It's a chiffonade of...
It's a chiffonaded chip butty. It's basically, we're putting peas smashed into 2 slices of bread and then frying it till it's really crispy. So you've almost got a parcel of mushy peas. And then we're making scraps. Do you call them scraps?
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Scraps
The
up
crispy
north.
bits.
Crispy bits. But we're serving them in a rice paper cone. Ooh. So it feels like you're getting a cone of chips, but a cone of scraps. And then we're going to put a tomato sauce inside the chips.
What?
Yeah.
Incredible.
So that's what we're doing next week.
That sounds wild.
Sounds weird, yeah.
Romy, what's the best vegan food you've eaten lately?
The thing is, Indian food is so versatile. Indian food is practically plant-based,
Yes.
So I think, the samosas I make for Diwali or any fritters like rosti, or if I'm making a pakoras, I think Diwali was really lavish. I was on pack lunch show. I was making samosas. Came back home. I made samosas and gujia. Gujia is like deep fried sweet coconut. You can have different kind of flavors to it, but my daughters love that. So samosas, I think I really kind of my go-to thing is samosas
Nice.
and
Can I ask
samosa chaat, sorry,
What was the coconut thing?
yeah.
What was the
So
coconut idea?
gujia is very similar to they're like sweet kind of deep fried snacks. They are very similar. The way of folding is like a dumpling, but we fry them. I use the fresh coconut. We're so lucky nowadays we can get anything. But I grate the fresh coconut. Then I'll add crushed fennel seeds, then green cardamom seeds and sugar, and then cook in ghee. And that's the filling of the pastry. And then
that's
you
nice.
kind of fold it, and then you deep fry them. It's so delicious.
That's
It's so
nice.
I like the
crispy
fennel
and
idea.
the bite.
Yeah, that's a great
Fennel
idea.
and cardamom are just, Indian food for me. If you want to be vegan, if you want to be, eat less meat or whatever, I think Indian food for me has always been my go-to.
Yeah, good call.
Excellent.
Rishim, what about you?
Oh, it's actually really strange. All three of us are picking up some fried food.
Yeah, because the season's changed. We're all looking to
No
hibernate.
salad.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so work's been so busy, so it's just a bit difficult to get out. But every time we do, it's more likely what my 2-year-old won't throw off the table. We can't choose and pick. So we went to this beautiful, really speakeasy falafel place in Twickenham. It's
Yeah.
called Sidra. I know people don't really travel for falafel, but the
I'll
baba ganoush
travel
was
for
good.
falafel. Yeah.
Yeah, so they had this falafel and they had this beautiful, amazing potato salad, which they had the spring onions, like they were burned and they had some oil on it, and it was incredible. It was the freshest hummus and the pita was nice and fluffy. So yeah, I think that's the to-go lunch these days, I believe.
Sounds fantastic. In fact, I think most of you have touched on some things that we're going to get onto in due course, including fritters. So sit tight, frying fans, it's coming. Onward then. Lauren says, this is a simple cooking question, but there are so many varieties. I feel like this is a podcast in itself, and I'm going to say will be one day. What's the panel's favourite way to prepare potatoes? Now, there's a vegetable we can all get behind.
We love spuds.
Yeah, mashed, chipped, roasted dauphinoise, the list goes on. Lauren, great question. Romy, let's start with you.
I don't know if you know aloo paratha, which is like an Indian flatbread. So it's stuffed with herbs and spices, and then you cook it. I think my mom, any Indian women in India or men would love parathas, and mom would make so many different ways. But I think that is one of those, and also the tiki, which is like a croquette or rosti, whatever you can say, is one of the things which I think is so comforting. And also so easy to make. And for me, I think, and also another thing is if you boil the potatoes, add in a flour, just plain flour, and then bind it, it is the most tender, moist dough you will ever have. And then make your parathas with it.
Wow.
Isn't that weird how, as Romy says there, I don't know why, but potatoes feel comforting.
Oh,
Strange,
they are.
isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know why.
Food, isn't it?
It's carbs. It's just carbs.
Yeah.
It's as close in vegetable form. It's as close as you can get to a donut, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah. There are so many varieties. Do you know more than 500 varieties of potatoes?
Yeah, and donuts. So there you go. I was right. Rishim, what about you? What do you like to do with a potato?
Oh my god. Okay, it depends if I'm feeling lazy or fancy. Lazy's fries. Oh my god. Yeah, all the time. Fries with some nice mayo, some spice. But yeah, we tried out this terrine once made with potatoes. It's quite interesting. It's a take on your how do you call it, dauphinoise basically, but without the cream and the butter. So It sounds like a bit of a task, but it's quite straightforward once you get a hang of it. You obviously slice your potatoes super thin on a mandolin or something, lay them up, and now at this stage you can season. You could add seeds, spices, aromats, whatever you prefer, whatever you have at hand. We do burnt garlic, which works really well. And you lay them up in a nice castro. Try and sieve flour every 5-6 layers, and then you bake it. Right now, till now it's very healthy. You bake it, you think you're just gonna slice it, eat it.
Yeah, and then go on.
Take it out, press it, and then you fry it.
Then you fry it. I should have a bell I can ring every time.
And then you get those crispy bits and soft center. It just goes so well with anything. It's like a, I mean, you can't go wrong with roast potatoes. That's bottom line. But these come fairly close.
Yes, I'm gonna put a little plug for our Christmas special, which is going to be out, I think, on the 17th of December, which has some top tips on roasting potatoes. Andrew, what do you like to do with a potato?
Well, and this stems, and I did this because I'm a child of the 80s.
Nice.
I'm actually a child before that, but my teens were the 80s, and my mother was a terrible cook, and she used to always give us remember those bird's eye potato waffles? Do you remember them?
They're waffly versatile, I've heard.
Waffly versatile. Them. So
I heard they're just waffle.
No, they're not. Here's a tip for everyone. Christmas is coming.
Yes.
Ask your nearest and dearest to buy you one of those little waffle makers from Argos. Other shops are available.
Yes.
Take some mashed potato that you've got left over from the day before.
Yes.
Add some oat milk or soya milk to that. Mix it up. Half a teaspoon of baking powder. You'll get a recipe online. Mix it up so it's like a really thick batter. A little bit of chopped spring onion in there, or a bit of chopped chilli, or both.
Yeah.
And add it to your waffle maker, and you've got chilli or spring onion waffles.
Oh.
And then try it with sweet potatoes.
I mean,
the sweet potato waffles.
Sweet potatoes, I can take or leave. It just feels fraudulent. It's a vegetable pretending to be sweets. It's masking as candy. It's not. It's still a vegetable.
Well, what you could do is take the sweet potato waffles, add some sugar to the batter, and serve it as a dessert with ice cream.
It's still fraudulent. It's still a vegetable.
There's no change in your mind, is there?
No, I'm sorry. This is awful. I'm like the Clarkson of vegans. It's horrific. That's a great idea, though, and a waffle iron. Yeah, that might have to go on my Christmas list now. Thanks so much for those. Beth has written to say, I've been eating healthier for the last 6 months. But I know, well done, Beth. But now the winter nights are drawing in. All I want is big comfort meals, I think we're saying, fried potatoes. Could I please have some hot salad inspiration, please? I think she means hot salad, not hot inspiration for a salad. Although I think we'll take either. Andrew, let's start with you.
Well, obviously a hot salad is going to be wilted and be nothing left. So you've got to work around that. Sure. So the idea is to try and make elements of it hot. So for example, if you're going to put a salad in a bowl, the nice idea is to take some noodles, heat them up, put them in the bottom of the bowl, and then put your other salad ingredients on top.
Oh, nice.
Or make some of it hot. So you could take a salad in a bowl, but heat up the dressing. So let's say you've got an oil and you've added some chopped onions to it, maybe a little bit of green and red chilli, maybe some dried fruit to that, something a little bit different. Warm that up, and last minute just drop that hot oil over your salad. So it starts to warm it up without destroying it too much.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. Nice. Romy, what about you?
Warm salads are amazing. I think you can make so many different ways. If you have a can of tinned chickpeas, drain the water, wash them, and then lay them on the baking tray with some spices or herbs, whatever you like, or chili. And then bake them for about 15 minutes in the oven. They become really crunchy and warm. And then you can have kale, whatever you like, spinach, anything, and then make your own dressing. And then and add, if you're vegan, you can add vegan cheese. And then, just pomegranate. I mean, I love pomegranate. I grew up having pomegranate trees in India. So I think pomegranate is something beautiful jewels. They look lush. But they work really well with any kind of chickpea. So I think warm salads, you can do so many different ways. Especially now, winter, we have pumpkins, we have lovely different kind of squashes. You can grate them and then warm it up with, oil or something like that, and have so many different ways of making warm salads.
Lovely ideas.
Yeah.
I was very into pomegranates when I started eating more healthily about a year ago. And then I realized they're like 350 calories a go. I mean, they are massive. Anyway,
but
Rishim,
you can actually dry them and make them a nardana, which is like an Indian thing we use in India. And then you can have half dry them. Then the calories are down, and then have them on the salads or anything you're cooking.
Hang on, you can't evaporate calories, can you? Because I'm going to dry out some Mars bars right now. Oh. Trust me, when it becomes an nardana, the calories are less. Oh, interesting. Oh, fascinating. Top tip. Rishim, what about you?
So a nice warm winter salad. I think anything more comforting other than potatoes, like Andrew said, is probably rice. And if you're a bit creative with it, you can turn that into a really interesting salad. It takes on flavor so well, everybody likes it. If you want to keep it a bit healthier, I would recommend go for a black rice, perhaps, anything you can get from your Asian stores. Mm-hmm. And while you're at it, look for a good vegan curry paste. Like a masaman works really well. It's got a nice kick to it. And perhaps a tin of coconut milk. So you basically cook your rice the way you would, but instead of adding water, you add coconut milk and masaman paste and sort of braise the rice slowly. Obviously add a bit more liquid if needed. Now you basically have your base done, which is a nice warm rice. It will store in the fridge for a few days.
Sure.
And now you can build upon it. Winters, again, squash, like Romy mentioned, it's incredible in season right now.
Yeah.
So you could take squash wedges, marinate in the same curry paste, grill them, or some chopped chard on top, and always feel nice seeds and nuts just to round off, just to add that nice little crunchiness to the dish. Really works. Totally. So a good pumpkin seed or even chopped hazelnuts, whatever you prefer.
That sounds brilliant.
I think having a good store cupboard ingredients doesn't have to be very expensive. Having good store cupboard ingredients are a must for anything, I think.
Absolutely.
I also think out of all the things we've talked about so far, you could probably make a good warm salad with all of those. The bok choy and everything would go together.
That's true.
With a couple of samosas on the side.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm wondering at what point does it stop being a salad and become kind of just a full-blown curry? Yeah, but that was delicious. Thank you for that. Yota has emailed to say, can I have some vegan binders for sweet corn fritters? Everything I've used in the past has never worked, and they fall apart in the pan unless I'm cooking them wrong too.
Yeah, they do. Do
they? Because I keep meaning to do them and I haven't done them. So can I have some tips for the binders in the process? Thank you. Andrew, sounds like you're on the case.
Oh, one of the first problem is don't put too much sweet corn in. Because if you've got too much sweet corn, there's nothing else in the mix to bind together. It's mainly sweet corn. Yeah. And sweet corn stuck next to itself doesn't work. It falls apart, obviously.
I mean, those skins are basically Teflon, aren't they?
Yes, so they just break away. So don't put too much in. I assume it's obviously wheat flour that's being used. Mm-hmm. So what you could do is to help it bind some potato flour.
Right.
Which would also pair. Or you can get this online, and we used to use this quite a lot because it's quite clever. It's something called Ultra Text.
To what? Speech to text?
Ultra Text, and it's basically, you can buy it online. It's basically a starch, and it's pure starch. There's nothing else in it.
Isn't this what you make ceilings with?
Yeah. That you need a bit of art for that. I think that's art text.
Okay, sure.
And it'll basically bind that together for you. But in the first case, potato flour and not too much sweet corn.
Right. Yes. Back on.
I'll put some curry paste in as well. There we go again. To give it a bit of a kick.
Yeah.
I love sweet corn fritters.
Oh, I think sweet corn is possibly the best vegetable. Romy, what about you?
I mean, chickpea flour, like not chickpea, garam flour, not chickpea, the garam flour, But I also use rice because my next book is all about the Himalayan trail, is about Ladakhi food and the Kashmiri food. They use a lot of rice flour mixed with potato. But I think the garam flour is the best thing.
Yeah, that's what you use for an onion bhaji, isn't it?
It is, and it's gluten-free, and you can mash with not only that, but you can also, if you don't want to deep fry them, you can use the oven, you could use, like in the pan and make it. But I think gluten, the garam flour is the best thing because it's got the, stickiness to it and it works really well.
And the flavour as well.
Yeah, gives it a kind of nutty bite, doesn't
Nuttiness.
it? Yeah.
Yes.
Rishim, what do you fritter?
Like Andrew mentioned and Romy mentioned, I think the potato flakes work really well. Potato flour, potato flakes, you can get them off supermarket shelves. They're fairly cheap. So what we used to do like a courgette and sweet corn fritter, and courgette's obviously got a lot of liquid, but we used to add sweet corn to it. I usually ended up making like a sweet corn puree, but a really thick one. And then you kind of cook the puree in the pan and add a lot of sweet corn in it, and then bind it with potato flakes, some bit of potato flour. And I think the most important thing for this one is that you want to have it chilled before you start to cook. If you start at room temperature, it's just going to collapse. So you might want to make your batter, make your mix in advance, put that in the fridge for a few hours so it's nice and chill and stiff. And you just literally don't want to handle it too much. Perhaps use a spoon and just drop it in oil. Don't stress too much about having excess oil in the pan. You can have a little extra. You can drain that off on a piece of cloth. But yeah, just to give them, you're basically playing with the temperature here right now. So you want the crunchy exterior with soft, mushy inside.
Yeah.
So if it's cooked from chill, it's way better then.
And are these, this is a fairly simple question, but these are not things that you're deep frying. These are kind of shallow frying, the way you do like a drop scone or a pancake or something like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
just checking.
To get that crunchiness, you still need a bit of oil. Yeah.
Go ahead, Romy.
But if you're very health conscious, then you can honestly make it in the oven and it works really well.
Oh, there you go. That definitely sounds like it would
sweet corn fritter
mitigate the disaster. Yeah. Now Maya's been getting aubergines in her odd box. Well, lucky you. I would love some. I love an aubergine. Okay, that's my favourite now. I'm just get everyone. No, that's my favourite. I would love some great recipes using this ingredient. Curry ideas are always welcome. Sounds like Maya's up for spicing. Romy, let's start with you.
Aubergine is one of those vegetables. There are so many different aubergines. There are long ones, there are big ones, there are small ones. If you go into Asian shops, you can find those. But aubergine is one of those things that work for me. I think dill, coconut, and aubergines with spices, whatever onion, ginger, garlic you're going to have.
Nice.
I have that in my book as well. It's really, really nice. But my absolute favorite has to be the Indian baigan paratha, which is like a baba ganoush, but in a spicy way. You kind of cook the aubergines on the flame, and then you peel the skin, then you make that mash, and then cook the separate onion, garlic, whatever you're putting, chilies, coriander, separate, and then mix them together. I think that is one of the best Moorish, flavorful, tasty, I would say,
absolutely
aubergine dish.
Just like baba ganoush, which is Moorish.
Yeah.
Andrew, what would you do with an aubergine?
You laughed a little bit there.
No, I didn't. No, I kept it together and I'm going to continue.
He's going to say something crazy. I never used to like aubergines, but I really do now. And one of the things that drew me to them is I found out some time ago that they actually contain nicotine.
What?
Well, when I say they contain nicotine, you have to eat something like 9 kilos worth
I can do that.
to obtain the same nicotine level as one cigarette.
Yeah, I can do that. That's one
so
hell of a cigarette paper, isn't it?
Yeah, so if you run 20 a day, that's a lot of aubergines. What was the question?
It's, how many kilos of aubergines for a successful... No. Yeah, what do you want to do with it on?
Okay. I quite like, and you talked about this earlier on, is that quite often people use meat substitutes as the star of the show on the plate, as the centerpiece, the focal point. Aubergines are quite good for replacing that, because if you think of meat on a plate, it's usually a shape, and it's the bit that everybody looks at and you head for. Where with aubergines, it's quite useful, and quite a neat little trick is to cut them in half lengthways, and then in each half, just on the side and with the tip of your knife, cut a pocket inside. So what you end up with is it's almost like an envelope, and what you can do is take something like cooked chickpeas or cooked beans or cooked red kidney beans, spice them up a little bit, stuff them inside of there, make sure they're well inside, then the cut side of the aubergine, brush it with a little bit of water, dip it in a rice flour or dip it in polenta flour, pan fry it till it's crispy, bang it in the oven, let it finish off, and when it comes out, you've got this crispy skinned aubergine with your spiced beans inside, and that's the focal point of your plate. I mean, it doesn't just have to be, you can make your mind up what you want to put inside, but the point is you can actually use it as a focal point on your plate by frying that one side and then baking it off in the oven.
Nice. Bit of theatre there. Rishim, what about you?
Somebody once mentioned that they don't like aubergine. Lots of people, but there's so many different ways of cooking it. And the thing with aubergines are that they take on flavor so well. So you could roast them, you could char them, if you go Indian route, and you can bake them if you want to have its tomato sauce. But seasoning wise, I feel tahini or harissa. I mean, we're going a bit med route on this.
Sure.
But it works really, really well. So smoke your aubergine, char your aubergine on a flame, just take the skin off, chop up the pulp, add tahini, some fresh dill, sesame seeds, serve it on a puff pastry or a toast. It just works like a dream.
Oh, top tips.
I agree there, because one of the things I never used to like aubergine. I think sometimes if it's undercooked, the texture's quite strange.
Yes.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, it's not the biggest. It's not the biggest flavourful. You don't eat it and go, wow, that's packed with flavour. It's not a big flavoursome vegetable. So I think, as you say, if you're charring it and baking it off, trying to get flavour into it does help for people that think it's a bit of a strange vegetable.
Yes, that's a good point. Never undercook an aubergine.
Yeah.
That's the top tip, isn't it? I think. I mean,
Toppest tip.
For my money. Always massacre it. What do I know? Anyway, Connor says, oh, this one's my favourite. I'm kidding. It's cabbage. How can I jazz up a cabbage? So I'm excited because I've upped my brassica intake a lot in the last year. Rishim, let's start with you.
Oh, wow. Cabbage. Again, it's like aubergine, right? No flavor per se, but you can do so much with it. Try kimchi. It's so rewarding,
Yes.
Just chop it up, brine, we do a 3% salt to the weight. We used to do this amazing black pepper kimchi. You don't have to go down the Asian route again, so it's just like literally fermented cabbage with an amazing hint of black pepper in it. It works. Chop it up with your salads or, with your soups, whatever. It really works.
That's a great idea. Nice. I've been doing kimchi pretty steadily for the last year. My top tip, if you're really nervous about starting, is if there's like an Asian supermarket near you and they sell homemade kimchi, and very often it's worth asking because they'll have it like under the counter and they'll sort of sell it to you in a plain paper bag. Use the brine from that kimchi as your starter. Because it will absolutely set off your homemade kimchi like a rocket. It's served me really well. It's like sourdough. It's like a starter.
The culture of cultures.
Yes. Andrew, cabbage. Are you a fan?
I love cabbage.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant. I mean, it's cheap. It's versatile. Yeah. I do. My favourite is the Savoy, because I like it's got the crinkly bits in it. I quite like that.
Yeah.
This is it. Take the cabbage, get rid of the scrappy bits on the side that are a bit rough, cut it into quarters, put it in a casserole pot with a lid on, and microwave it or steam it. Okay. Until it's really soft. If
it's an iron pot, don't microwave it.
Don't put metal in the microwave or yourself.
Yeah.
And then, when it's cooked and it's really soft, onto a tray, a bit of olive oil, a bit of salt and pepper, and roast it until it's really, really brown. And I it just completely changes it. You would eat it and on its own, on its own, it's almost like you don't need anything else with it. Yeah. It really is, it just intensifies the flavour so much. Failing that, stir fry it. Stir fry it with a little bit of shredded nori. The seaweed. The seaweed. That saltiness of the seaweed helps bring it out. And it's quite nutty when you stir fry it.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
There's a nutty answer.
I love it. It's absolutely nutty. I love that idea of kind of pre-cooking it, like effectively steaming it, I guess, if you haven't got a microwave.
Yeah.
And then roasting it to get that
the
kind of
flavour completely
caramelization.
changes.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Romy, what about you? Are you a cabbage nut?
I love cabbage. There's so many different cabbages. If it's a hard cabbage, then it has to be the Indian pickle, which I do with nigella seeds and chilies and vinegar or lime juice or lemon juice. So
how do you do that? Is that like a fresh pickle thing rather than a preserve?
It is, but it stays. But it is oil is used for it, so it's not fermenting. Fermenting is in a different process.
Yeah.
So pickling is a bit of different process to it is similar, but it's in a different way. But then you can ferment, which Olia Hercules is a dear friend who's Ukrainian, who's taught me how to ferment proper cabbage the way they do it. But if it's a leafy one, I do this. I blanch all the leaves, and then once they're soft, it depends if you are vegetarian or vegan, you can add shredded vegetables, or if you're a meat eater, then you could add pork or whatever you want to, and then you steam them. It's like
rice papers.
Momos. It's like the dumplings, but in a cabbage.
Yeah.
It's very healthy. It's really delicious.
That's a really nice idea.
Also, yeah, it's really good. I have a recipe on one of my Instagram accounts. There should be recipe that should be there. If you're using, the sweet potatoes you don't like, you can use the sweet potato filling in there. So many things can be done with cabbage. Cabbage is actually, and kachumber salad, which we do Indian kachumber salad with. You can shred that with onions, have onions, cucumber, whatever you like, and make it into a kachumber salad, which is utterly delicious.
That sounds good. That sounds like, I think there's a Turkish salad that's just like very finely shredded white cabbage, parsley, lemon juice, salt, and olive oil, I think.
Yeah, we'll add coriander to it. Yeah. So many.
Yeah. Okay, cabbage is my favourite now.
Cabbage is back.
Yeah, it's back up at number one. Clemmy says, can I have some advice on how to cook tempura correctly? I can never get the lightly battered effect. It always comes out too thick. Andrew, you've been doing a lot with batters lately.
I'm battered. There's a few things with this, and I'm going to get a bit scientific here, but it's the batter first of all, and the size of the vegetables. The vegetables, if you have them too big, they actually contain a lot of water, vegetables, and so what happens is the water from the vegetable soaks into the batter. That's the first thing. So keep the vegetables quite thin. And the other thing is the batter itself. There's a million recipes out there, but if you do need, some people say you don't need wheat flour at all, but the good thing about the wheat flour is it does contain some gluten, but too much gluten makes it too heavy. So what you do is half and half. So you could do half wheat flour and half rice flour. And what that does, it also gives it some texture, but rice flour has no gluten, so you're lowering the gluten content. Yeah. So if it's 100 grams of flour, you do half wheat flour and half rice flour. Some people use sparkling water as well. If you use sparkling water, you make the batter last minute, because if you make the batter with sparkling water and leave it for half an hour, the bubbles have gone.
Sure.
So it's pointless.
Yeah.
So you make it with the sparkling water. Don't mix it too much. If you mix it and whisk it and musk it, you start activating the gluten, and then it becomes quite tough.
Yeah, gloopy.
Yes. The gluten's activated, it becomes too tough, and it becomes difficult to eat. And the last thing is, make the batter thin. It should, when you dip the vegetables in, it should actually dribble back off.
Yes.
Because if it's too thick and it sits on the vegetable, say broccoli for example, it's going to be really thick and heavy. You want it to almost dribble off before you even get into the pan, so that it actually, as it falls off, it's thinner, the amount that's left on, so you don't get such a heavy batter. Sure. So change your flour, half and half, make it last minute. Don't whisk it for ages. Keep your vegetables thin and a nice thin batter so it's quite dribbly and dribbles off, and drop it in the fat straight away.
Amazing.
Done.
Rishim, do you have anything to add to that?
Wow, Andrew's pretty much covered everything with this. Sparkling water, small batches, don't whisk. I mean, use a fork to mix rather than using a whisk. That's a lot simpler.
Right.
If you want to do gluten-free, obviously switch to tapioca starch, which works really well, or a touch of corn flour, which again works really well. I mean, the thickness of the vegetables does make a massive difference.
Yeah.
You get these prawns, which are, but they're obviously super light and super thinly sliced. And then you need more surface area for the crunch, hence it works better.
And Romy, is the trick to use a really hot oil? Because it's the idea that you're cooking this kind of as fast as possible.
I don't, because sometimes what happens is the vegetables are raw inside. I keep the temperature. I bring the oil to a really high temperature and then kind of keep it in a medium heat, depending if you have a fryer or not, or you're doing it in a pan. But one of my chef friends, Jeremy, who's on Ready Steady Cook, taught me and it is such a great idea, which I think Rishim said as well, is half, whatever flour you're using, wheat flour, half corn flour. It is, and what he does, it uses... He'll add some, he does add a little bit of yogurt to it as well, and then does it. It is the most crunchiest tempura I've ever had.
Interesting.
Crispy, crunchy. I've never ever used that before, but when he taught me, and I do exactly like that now. I don't change my recipe at all.
Nice.
Lots of fried food today, isn't there?
Yeah, always. I have to apologise. This podcast is probably destroying lives.
It's greasy. It's a greasy podcast.
Okay, let's degrease. Final question. Jen says, can I have a good glaze for my salads or any vegetable dish for that matter? Thank you. Sure, fried onions. No, I'm kidding. Romy, let's start with you.
Glaze, it depends. Is this a vegan podcast, or is it just for anyone?
It's
Can
a
we use
vegan.
honey
Well,
or
I mean, everybody's welcome. The food is basically vegan.
I know. But if it's not vegan, then you can use agave or whatever you say, agave, or what is that?
Aquafaba?
Which is something like that. You can use that. I glaze it with that. And I use oil, that, and chili flakes and a little bit of things. And I leave it in the fridge, and then I add it later on for the salads.
Okay, nice.
To glaze it.
Yeah. Rishim, what about you?
Right, there's been a lot of fried food now, so we'll just do a little
You can, it's okay.
A little detox with the glaze now. So you get this amazing beetroot juice. I think you can get in pretty much every supermarket shelf now.
Yeah.
It's got good content of sugar, and it's like good sugar for you. So you want to reduce that right down on a low heat. Now at this point you can add maybe whole chili split in half without the seeds, or again some aromats, whatever you prefer, and reduce it right down to a glaze. And then mix a little oil, season it nicely, put in a squeezy bottle if you have one handy, and then literally once you cook your vegetables, just toss it in that, touch of vinegar, and that works. It's nice and sweet, earthy, nutty.
Yeah, that's a wild idea. I love that. And Andrew,
like that.
What about you?
A couple really. I'm assuming by glaze, it's almost like a dressing type thing. A nice one is to take some soy sauce, add it to a saucepan, and then throw in half a de-seeded chili. And then I would say, if you're putting a cup of soy sauce in there, I would say about 40-50 grams of sugar, and bubble it and simmer it until it. When chefs talk about reducing, what happens is as it boils, the water evaporates, and as the water evaporates, the resulting
the calories.
product,
We learned
the
this
calories. There you go.
Yeah.
The resulting liquid becomes thicker. So if you did that with soy sauce, you'd bubble it with the sugar. It would reduce down. The water would evaporate. It would get thicker. Last thing, remove the chili, then let it cool down, and you've got a thick syrupy glaze that you could put over a salad, add over a stir fry at the end. I can also do it with the vinegar, any type of vinegar, malt vinegar, raspberry vinegar, balsamic vinegar. Literally put it in a pan, add a handful of sugar, bubble it, let it simmer away until water starts to evaporate, so you've reduced it by about half, And what you end up with is, when it's gone cold, this sharp yet sweet glaze that goes with lots of different things.
That sounds brilliant. Sounds frankly quite drinkable.
Top tip though, Jake, if you do that with vinegar, if you get too close to the pan, the steam that's coming off it, it actually hurts your nose and it's sharp. And that's because what happens is the acid turns back into, it condensates inside your nose, and that's where I get that sudden sharp feeling inside your nose. It turns to acid inside your nose.
Wow.
So be careful.
It's an extra bonus,
Yeah.
A decongestant to boot. We could all use some of that this time of year. Thank you, all three of you, so much for your answers. Before you go, though, where can people find you and the stuff you're doing? Andrew, let's start with you.
Website vanillablack.co.uk. We're doing some teaching sessions on there. We're also in January another cookery school at the University of West London, just waiting for the date. The last one we did aerated donut and other weird things like a Bloody Mary on glass. So that type of thing.
Oh, wow.
Lots of fun.
Oh, I think I saw that. It looked like some kind of amazing splash thing had happened.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah, that was wild. That looked great. Romy, what about you? Well, we just tune into any cookery show ever, anywhere.
Yes.
Channel 1, 2, 3, 4.
Any channels, I am always there. But at the moment, I'm on Channel 4, which is Steph's Pack Lunch, which is afternoon show. So I'm always on there, and especially on Instagram. I love Instagram. If you want to follow me, please do.
Well, who are you on Instagram?
It's Romy Gill. Very simple, very easy.
Perfect. And Rishim, what about you?
Yeah, so we have a pop-up, like a long residency in a pub in Soho. It's called Sun in 13 Cantons. It's on Pulteney Street. We've been here 5 months and we are here till January. Looking for a permanent spot at the moment, which, fingers crossed, hopefully we'll be able to announce super soon. We do meal boxes with a company called Big Night. You could order them at home or just drop in at the pub we do like a nice interesting tasting menu, which works well. And follow us on Instagram. It's Tendril Kitchen and the website is tendrilkitchen.co.uk.
Fantastic. Thanks very much to all of you, and thanks to you for listening. Don't forget, you can send us a question. It's podcast@veganlifemag.com. Veganlifemag.com is where you can get a subscription to the magazine, or you can just go to a shop. Come on, bit of exercise. Walking's as good as running. Did you know that? Apparently, that's what I'm counting on. Anyway, or you can just get a subscription to the app, on the app. Do the app. What's the app? I don't know. Also, we're on Instagram. It's veganlife_podcast. Do follow us. We've got recipes on there and stuff from the podcast. And we'll see you next week for a discussion about growing your own, which covers a subject very dear to my own heart. But you're going to need a strong stomach. In the meantime, from me, Jake Yap. Bye-bye. This has been a Swanburst Media production.